Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for a new album review on the channel this Monday, and I'm talking about the 8th studio album from the Alice Cooper Band titled The Revenge of Alice Cooper. This was released on the 25th of July via Ear Music, and the album is 14 tracks and 54 minutes in length. Now, if you count all of Alice Cooper's solo studio albums as well, this is the 30th album from Alice Cooper overall, but this is, reuniting him with that classic lineup of the Alice Cooper Band era. The likes, of course, of Neil Smith on drums, Michael Bruce on rhythm guitar, and Dennis Dunaway on bass guitar as well, making up that sort of classic era lineup of the band. You've also got Bob Ezrin on board here as producer once again, and I feel like this is a definite callback to that era. This album is a deliberate callback to that late 60s, early 70s Alice Cooper era, with the albums that made him big, right? The sort of Killer and Billion Dollar Babies albums come to mind as two of those kind of hallmark Alice Cooper albums that a lot of people refer to when they talk about that era of the band. I personally, going off on a slight tangent here, I'm a big fan of the late 80s, early 90s Alice Cooper outputs during his the sort of longer solo career that he's had. I absolutely love the likes of Trash, Hey Stupid, even enjoy Constrictor as well. I mean, those albums are right up my alley for a particular style of Alice Cooper I personally enjoy, but I do obviously still respect and fully appreciate that classic era of the band. And I do think, that this is a really solidly performed album. I think it's really well produced. Everything is well balanced. It obviously benefits from having, modern production facilities available, which wouldn't have been the case in the late 60s and early 70s era. And I do think Alice Cooper, despite, showing somewhat that he is now 77 years young, his vocals are still pretty good. They're still raspy and creaky and suit this kind of music, that sort of old school bluesy kind of style, classic rock style. I do think the vocals actually work well with that, even at this stage, in the late stage in the sort of Alice Cooper career. And I do think he sounds good here, but just perhaps not quite having the energy that I can think of from some of the Alice Cooper albums I personally love. Just my own thoughts on Alice Cooper as a vocalist now. But I did like this album. I'm going to go into some of the tracks now that I really enjoyed, Wild Ones being one of them, especially as I so often shout out in these reviews, I love the guitar solos. So if there's a good guitar solo, which I think there is at the end of this song, just want to point out I enjoy that very classic style of guitar solo as well. And I still think, as Cooper will say, sounds pretty good here. I enjoy the bass work of Dennis Dunaway a lot on this album and throughout a lot of the songs. That's another point I wanted to make about the Wild Ones track. I enjoy the bass work a lot on here as well. Up All Night is a sort of typical song from Alice Cooper, almost lyrically, with that track. I guess it's just kind of a fun song to listen to. Probably not one of my favourites on the album, but it does the job well enough to keep me on board with the album. I wasn't so interested in Kill the Flies, which is where I consciously disengaged a bit from this record. I just found that song sort of, whilst again it's meant to be a fun track, I just didn't find that there was anything here that I really could gravitate towards. Just didn't find anything much interesting lyrically or performance-wise so much in this track. Money Screams, though, one of my favourites on the record. I love Money Screams. It reminds me stylistically of a track you might get from the Kinks or the Rolling Stones from that classic kind of rock era of the late 60s, early 70s. Really reminds me of that kind of a style of song, and absolutely loved Money Screams. Really well performed and written song. And I wouldn't mind a few more tracks like this on this album, actually. Intergalactic Vagabond Blues was a sort of another one of these kind of fun, off-the-wall type Alice Cooper songs. I quite enjoyed Intergalactic Vagabond Blues overall, and liked the wild kind of guitar solo and some of the harmonica as well. A bit of a crazy track, but enjoyable nonetheless. And I personally also want to shout out the closer on this record, which kind of gave me some warm fuzziness. Just a sort of more sentimental album closer, but again well performed. And a pretty good way to finish this album. It's kind of, for me, like callback album, a classic era callback of Alice Cooper. So yeah, I'd say overall I'm feeling about a 7 out of 10 on this. I don't know if this isn't the kind of album I think is going to end up high on my year-end list as such, but I do think it's very listenable. It's enjoyable. I think it's solid. And if you're an Alice Cooper fan, particularly of those old school albums, I think you're still going to really enjoy this. And I can see why some people have been giving this glowing reviews, because I do think it's a really well-performed album in the context of where Alice Cooper is in his career and having that original lineup back with him once again. So let me know what you thought of this album in the comments. Did you like it? Did you like it not so much? Do let me know what your favourite songs were maybe as well. And until next time on the channel, from me, it is bye for now.